So, gear. This is something I haven't talked about on my channel, I think, ever. And a lot of people, a lot of my viewers have asked about my sort of stereo setup. So I thought of going on here, showing you the stuff that I have, that I'm playing my records on and with and all that good thing. The most essential sort of gear that I have in my setup. And I mean, write comments if you have tried something of this out, if you have suggestions for me and stuff like that, combinations that I could go with, and stuff like. Talk to me, people. And obviously, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe if you think that the stuff that I'm supplying to the YouTube world is something worth keeping on listening to. And at the end of the video, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, because then it will spread to even more people. And with that being said, let's go and dig into the sort of the stereo setup that I have. But first, the intro. I'm going to start with the main man here, and that is the Clear Audio Concept record player, the turntable that I use and I have used for, I think, 8 years now, something like that. Before this I had a Riga P1, so with a OM30 pickup cartridge, and it sounded good, but I knew that with my sort of my records growing and my listening habits were growing too, in part with interest. I want to invest in something a little bit better, and in this case, like many cases, I just went to people I know in my surroundings, and Anders in Stockholm had a Clear Audio Concept that he had bought. I listened to that, sounded great. We had or had at least the same kind of taste in music when it came to the jazz part, at least. So I knew that if I was getting that, I would get a great sound out of the turntable. So I got it. Now, the cartridge that came with it was a Clear Audio cartridge, and from the get-go, like from the start, I didn't like the sound that came out of it. I actually felt like that the Ordophone OM30 on my Riga P1 sounded better than this one. So I actually swapped my cartridge out pretty quickly, like maybe a year after or something like that. And I went with the Dynavector 10x5, and this is I think a high output cartridge, so you get the sort of the MC sound out of a cartridge. At least that's what I read. But fudge it sounded great from like the first time I hit the record with the Dynavector. It sounded great, and it just grew over time when it had some hours. Today, I mean, fast forward, I actually have re-tipped this, and I didn't know that this sort of thing even existed, but today it's like a €900 cartridge, 900 euros, somewhere along that line. It's a lot of money. I actually got mine for 350 because I think the store that sold it back in the day made a error on their page, so I just swooped in and caught that one. But yeah, and my stylus, my needle was blown, so I actually sent it to Germany to a specialist to re-tip it, and now I have an even better needle in my cartridge than it came with from the start. So I even now, years later, when re-tipping it for another 300 euro, I have better sound than I had to start with. So that's the setup. That's the turntable. Now, pros and cons. The pros I already talked about. I think it sounds great. Is this the last turntable I'll ever have? No, definitely not. And I already have my eyes on something, and hopefully, like in 2-3 years, I will replace my turntable for an even better one. But it works like a charm. Like, this is something that you could live with the rest of your life. The only down part of this, when having kids and pets in your house is that it doesn't come with a lid. Is that the word? Like, so you can buy this sort of, I'm putting pictures here, I hope at least I'm doing that. You can buy this, and I did that, and that works when you're not playing, but you have nothing to really put down when you are spinning a record. And with cats that are interested in stuff that moves, you know the deal. So I'm scared every time. So the next one is the amp, and that I want to talk about. And I had a Harman Kardon 970 or 980, I think, a stereo receiver that worked fine for many years. I actually used a phono stage that was pretty cheap, but it made some difference with the sound. In comparison with what I have now, I realize now that the Harman Kardon gave me a very digital and maybe for being such a affordable receiver, a warm sound, but nothing that comes close to what I have today. Because I really, and this was an investment, because this cost about 3,000 euro. I invested some years ago in Cajun or Cajun. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's I think it's Chinese. Cajun SC88A. So what this is a tube amplifier. Because I started to really read up on tubes and what tubes make to the sort of analog sound, and I listened to a lot of tube amplifiers, and I mean it's like night and day, and it's another level of the sort of the stupidity of this hobby, because you can change tubes to get different sounds, and you can buy used tubes and old tubes from back in the day, stuff like that. It's a jungle, but the sound, my God, what a difference it was. And I use it today. I don't have any plans of changing a receiver anytime soon, like never. So moving along to the next sort of component, and you are thinking speakers. No, I want to talk about the phono stage, because I had a Torrance, I think it was a Torrance phono stage before with the Harman Kardon, and it sounded good. It gave definitely in the sound, sort of the sound stage, it got better, and also pinpointing the instruments a little bit more in detail. But this is maybe a 200 euro sort of phono stage. I got a hold of a guy here in Sweden that builds, in his home, he builds phono stages from scratch. He gets the parts from the US, and he builds the sort of the cabinet, and yeah, he hand builds the phono stages. And I have heard super nice things about his phono stage, and it was pretty expensive. I think it was 500 euros maybe, something like that, for a phono stage. It's pretty much, but you could like send him 200 euros, and you could have it for 14 days, and you just pay the rest if you want to keep it. Otherwise you just send it back and you got the money back. So it's like a heroin addict. The first ones are free. So I got it home, didn't think it sounded good at all first, but after a week it just like bloomed. And this has made a huge difference in the sound. I mean, it opens up the room significantly compared to the built-in phono stage in the Cajun, and that's not a bad phono stage to begin with. The details that it digs in the sort of on the recording is insane. You hear it, especially with the jazz that I'm playing. You hear like every single movement on the sort of the bass or the snare or whatever it is. You hear details like you never heard before, and it also helped not only to widen the stage width and height, but also in depth. So you get a 3D sort of, or I, with my equipment, get a 3D sort of soundstage that I had never, ever heard before. So this is a stage to die for. People are comparing this with like $5,000, $7,000 phono stages or euros. I have no idea how they sound. I only know how this sounds, and this sounds great. Okay, so I think the moment that you all have been waiting for, because when talking to gearheads, especially vinyl gearheads, it's always speakers. You always talk about speakers, and I'd like to talk about phono stage more, but yeah, speakers. It's a fantastic thing because it's a huge part of the sort of the stereo setup, and I mean you don't only put in like how they sound. It's also how they look in your environment and stuff like that. So and the price point is everything from $50 to millions. So it's just an insane world when it comes to speakers. Now, I had a pair of speakers for many years that I was super happy with. That is called Focal Chorus 726. I think that is the sort of the number. I might be wrong here, but it looks like this. It's a floor standing speaker. Sounds great. I was happy with it. There's not much punch, more mid-range than sort of the bass punch. The thing I really liked about it, because all the like sort of the setups that I have had, I don't have much space, so pretty small rooms to play my records in and put my gear in. But I love these because they had the bass cone, I think that's the term, the bass pointing forward instead of backward, which is the sort of the natural way to go with speakers. So you could put it fairly close to the wall, and they worked for many years. But I'm an idiot, so I want not necessarily something better, but something else. And I talked with a buddy of mine that unfortunately passed away not too long ago, a month ago. One of my best friends. Sucks that he's gone, but that's that's life. And he was a huge hi-fi nerd, and he has been all his life. He died now when he was 55 years old. So in his entire life he has been a hi-fi nerd, and I learned so much from him. And he started to talk about a speaker that was made in Denmark by a pretty young company and a young guy called Mats Buchard. And the speakers I'm talking about is the Buchard, and the speakers that I bought is the Buchard S400. The Buchard S400, as you can see here from the pictures, is a satellite speaker, or I think it's called a bookshelf speaker. So I got these like floor standing pillars to get them up on. These speakers are from another planet. They start at €2,000, so it's a lot of money. But my Focal cost €1,500, so not that much more, but it's still a pretty small speaker. So can this small speaker deliver what the big chorus, the Focal, could? And the answer is yeah, they can, and they are magnificent. Like, you haven't heard music until you have heard a Buchard. I think that's like really the case. I have heard on hi-fi events and in hi-fi stores, I have heard speakers that costs tens of thousands of euros that doesn't even come close to the Buchard. And we're talking about a bloody bookshelf speaker. But they are so compact, but they deliver the most insane sound. The soundstage is huge. They also work with the sort of the 3D sound, and they deliver a bass that a lot of people that I know in this sort of hi-fi gear world, when they listened to them the first time, they were asking where the subwoofer were in the room, because they deliver so much bass, so it's like rattling the walls. Not too much bass, just perfect bass, if you get what I mean. So when I got the Bucard S400, it just changed my entire record collection. It was like listening to new records all over again. And I mean, when you change stuff in your gear, I guess that it has that effect. You can like really listen to records again and just like get blown away by how they sound. Different stuff, at least. So yeah, I'm super happy with my Bucard S400. And I don't see me changing these anytime soon. Let's wrap this up pretty soon. But there's two things that I want to talk about more that is in the sort of the gear realm. And the next one is I actually got a streamer. And what a streamer is just like putting your digital source into anything analog. So you can listen to Spotify for real on your sort of your setup, your gear. And in my case, I choose Tidal. Now this is a Bluesound node, and I read a lot of good things about this. I don't have much experience when it comes to streamers. I have only heard a handful of them. But what I read about the node, for the price that it costs, I decided to buy one of those, and I bought them used. And unfortunately, or fortunately, this little machine that I put in I connected up to my Cajun, and I just stream from Tidal, and I can use my phone. It's a software kind of thing. Software is very important when it comes to streamers, and the Bluesound has a great software or app that they use. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this is an important sort of artifact, isn't it? It's the cleaning sort of mechanism. If you buy thousands of records, they are worth, this is a bold statement, but they are worth nothing if you don't have a good way of cleaning them. I mean, why put on a dirty sort of half-assed clean record when you can invest in something that isn't that expensive? I mean, this is an expensive hobby, and we put in a lot of money in the stuff that I have behind me, don't we? So I know that we are not millionaires, not all of us, at least. But if you spend the money that you spend on the stuff behind me, you can just not do that for a while and buy a cleaning machine. I have the Okinoki. It doesn't cost that much, and it works perfectly. I've had it for more than 8-10 years. This was one of the first, when they came out with this, I was one of the first one that bought it. Still works like a charm. And there are I don't know what it's called, ultraviolet, ultrasonic cleaning machines nowadays that I probably would buy if I bought one, but they are expensive, I know, and my Okinoki works fine, so I'm gonna stick with that until that breaks. But as soon as that doesn't work anymore, I'm throwing myself at a new one, because cleaning the records, playing newly cleaned records is essential, especially if you put some money in there, because I mean my needle, not the needle, but the cartridge that I play with costs more than the Okinoki. So if I was to keep on just playing dirty records and harming the cartridge, that's a pretty stupid thing to do. If you could invest in an Okinoki and you have great clean records, and the needle can just, or the diamond can just flow through the tracks like it ain't no thing. So that's it. I love talking about this, so I hope that you liked watching it. And yeah, if you have any questions, write them down below, and I'll talk to you soon in my next video.